So why did I write this? If I'm just going to talk, I want to tell you how this happened to me, because it kind of more happened than I made it happen. Um, so you can kind of see where I'm coming from. Because let me tell you, I didn't really ever think that I would, write something like this. Though it doesn't surprise me. But it was a reaction to something I read 2 years ago. 2 years ago, almost exactly, about 2 years and 2 weeks ago. And actually, I've been thinking about these things and connecting to this idea for my whole life, but it's gotten really since I was born. Uh, but it's gotten developed as things have gone along. But I read I was, I just was looking for inspiration. I was looking for connecting to the source of where this country came from, where the idea of this country came from, which is maybe a better way to put it. And I hadn't read the Declaration of Independence in a very long time, as I bet some of you might be the same way. And I think the last time I read it was on the Freedom Train in 1976 at the Bicentennial, when they went on the country with the train and they had the Declaration of Independence on it, I'm pretty sure. And I reread it. And maybe you guys read it yourselves because I suggested that. And, uh, and it just blew my mind. Okay. And if you did reread it, you know, I mean, I was reading it and it was extraordinary. And perhaps you had the same experience. But as I was reading it, I literally felt like that they were writing to me. It could be to anybody, but at that time I was reading it to me directly, the reader, in July 4th, 2024, which is now July 4th or 5th, 2026, saying, here's the deal. This is what we're doing. We know things will get a little hairy. So we're giving you tools, very powerful tools built in to our founding document, to our declaration. We're actually, this is when you know you're dealing with some very foresightful people. It reminded me of of the sort of Native American outlook on things. 7 generations, which our leaders would be far better. We'd be far better off if our leaders thought this way. And it's kind of a deal with the chiefs, Native American tribes, to when they make an important decision, they think 7 generations ahead. How will this affect somebody 7 generations ahead? Not just one, seven. So, that's thinking ahead. And I think that the founders were doing that too. So if you read it, you saw, that they're basically like, look, we're doing this thing and we know it's imperfect. And so when things go wrong, we're going to arm you with the tools to use the power and the spirit of what founded this country, this experiment in freedom and independence and responsibility. Let's add, most importantly, we're going to give you the tools and we're going to say we're not only going to say it's okay to take the Declaration of Independence, this document we wrote, and apply it to your situation in the future. We're going to command you to. We're going to order you to. I don't know about you guys, but if you read it, when I finished reading it, I felt like if I didn't do something about what I had just experienced in reading it and what I had just felt and what I had just connected with the source of where the idea of this country, and not only this country, the idea of freedom, the idea of independence. Whoops. It looks like okay, now I'm back. I don't know why I have a bad connection. It's not, so actually, this is not just for the United States. It's kind of, I think it's kind of just a universal kind of thing. But we'll start with the United States. And so I read it, and I literally, I don't know what to tell you guys. If anyone that knows me, it's just one of those things. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I spent the next 2 weeks at least writing this or channeling this declaration of separation for the separation of corporation and state. And I don't even know where the name just popped into my head. It all just popped into my head, and I had to do something. And I felt like the founders were saying, yo, here's what we're giving you. The only thing that's lacking with what the founders have given us is will and determination, right? That's the thing that we have to bring, is will and determination and focus and discipline and sacrifice and all of those things, right? But they gave us the tools to do it. If we have that, we could do it. And so that's why I wrote this. And literally, you know, if you've read the whole thing, it's very much like a 21st century sort of revamping of the Declaration of Independence. I'm just sort of like, and I quote from it and all that. There's a lot of kind of new stuff, but it's all supported in what they say. And I actually put quotes around the direct quotes that I pulled out. And some of the more radical sounding things are all quotes from the Declaration of Independence, of them saying what we need to do when we find ourselves in this situation, which we're in. It's just common sense, right? That's what it is. It's just the laws of nature. It's just respecting the laws of nature, respecting the earth, you know, the creation of creator, respecting each other, you know, and respecting the rule of law, especially, you know, for human beings. I think that's a really important one, the most important. So, you know, I wrote this thing because it just, like, I had to. It just came out of me, and it took a while, like I was saying. I want to say this too. Boy, I wish we could go back and forth. That I am not an expert, right, on any of these matters. Okay, I'm not an expert on the Declaration of Independence. I'm not an expert on political science. I'm not, you know, what I am an expert on is caring. That I am an expert on, and I care deeply in every cell of my body, and I always have. And this is the time for people that care to stand up and take action. And I don't think that this document that just sort of came out of me because I couldn't help it. It was an act of nature. Is the end all and the be all or whatever. I just had to do it. I had to honor the founders. They inspired me to do it, and to bring their words back to life is what I wanted to do, and to bring it into the 21st century when we need this the most. I mean, you could make a case, a strong case, for that this is going to be the most important independence for this country, our independence from where we're at right now. You know, I was thinking to myself that, you know, yesterday on Independence Day, that there probably hasn't been an Independence Day in American history since the first one that was closer to what was going on at that time than now. And I was thinking that for me, the way I feel, and maybe you feel the same way, that yes, I was celebrating our independence and all those kind of things. But to tell you the truth, I was thinking a lot more about reclaiming our independence than celebrating it, because I don't feel like it should necessarily be celebrated right now. But in the spirit of independence, and in the spirit of what it is and what we're celebrating when we celebrate it, I can't imagine anything better than talking about what we're talking about right now. For me, this is a sacred, spiritual, universal, cosmic, mystical thing. Okay? This is not just about America. This is about creation. This is about reclaiming our future. And I think that we all know that this has to be done. And what I was trying to say before is I have far more questions than answers. In fact, I have a lot of questions. But I have a few guideposts along the way as well, and some ideas that I'm thinking of. Like I said to you, you know, I didn't just start thinking about this stuff. The Declaration, I came out of me 2 years ago, but I've been thinking about the corporate occupation and kind of what it represents for my whole life. And now is the time, as you all know, that we have to protect ourselves, and we have to protect our future, and we have to protect our children. And in fact, it's not even there's the enemy in this situation in terms of the corporate occupation. It's not necessarily human beings. It's not necessarily the people that work in corporations. It's the system itself. It's the system itself. But that's a side issue for me right now. The system, the corporate system. Mainly, I want to home in on the way that it interacts with our government and the way it interacts with our ability to protect ourselves from it. And so uh, I think that's really, really, really important. Okay. And I wrote this because I just wanted to throw something out there. And I wanted to get the conversation started. It's the beginning of the conversation, not the end. And nor do I think it's some perfect document. I always thought if people wanted to help to edit or give me ideas, I'd be open to it. I've given it to some people. It seems like it might sit the way it is. But for me, it's just the beginning. And I will tell you, there's a lot of things, people are like, and understandably, okay, got it, understand. That's the truth. We understand. Okay, so what can we do? What can we do about this? Well, first of all, and I think about that a lot, because it's a very, very important question. The first thing I'll say is that thinking about it a lot is the first step. I mean, having it at the forefront of your mind, thinking about it, talking about this with other people, keeping that energy active and expanding, and unfolding. It's all unfolding, And so I think that, being focused on it is really important, because again, the thing that will make this happen, and I don't know how it will happen exactly, but I know the engine that will power the transformation when it happens, and that is will. That is our will. The will of the people, And that's what we're talking about right now. And that is what we need to nurture and foster and connect with. So this is our first attempt to do that. I think that thinking about it, talking about it, paying attention to it, being aware of it is so very important. It makes things happen. Not only that, but it starts to create the energy that creates things. So that's a good thing to do. And we're doing that right now. Another thing that I think that is really important is to try to make yourself strong and flexible. I always say strong and flexible, both. And if I had to pick one out of the two, I would go with flexible as the most important quality. But strength is good too. And be strong and flexible. And I think it's really important as we approach this, because here's the deal. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen with this. I mean, yes, we need to vote. And yes, there's all these external things that we can do. But everybody's got to change something within themselves. As far as I can see it, this is something that comes from within, right? From within us all participants. And for something to truly come from within, you have to connect to it and do something for it, give something up for it, be disciplined for it, devote yourself to it. And so I also think, because this is so much for me about spreading an energy, it's more about spreading an energy and spreading a vibration, a frequency of possibility and change and light and good from one person to another, like a good virus, And I think, and that really goes a long way, and being an example. Okay. I think being an example is really important in this as well. So when you're talking about it, people are receptive to it because you're a good example. And so I think physical fitness is really, really important. People go, what can I do? What can I do? Well, I say exercise every day, because the foundation is what we're trying to fix here. The foundation. right? Everybody, people have been fixing the leaves on the end of the tree and changing them out and doing this forever and ever, and it never does anything. But we got to go down to the soil and down to the roots and dig around there and do some work down there. And it's always a little dirty, but that's what we have to do. And so I think being physically fit is really, really important to this, believe it or not, as well as it shows our devotion to our independence from the corporate occupation, which sort of thrives off of, our weakness and our need, right? And if you can sort of like unleash within you everything that's already there, so you don't really need that much from them, that's good. And then of course also, voting is incredibly important with this. But what we're talking about, what we just talked about, I think informs voting, right? So I think it's really important to be a great example and to be a great communicator and to communicate these things. Uh, it's the most important thing in the world, without question for me, and it should be the most important thing for everyone, because we are in peril. It's funny. I said that I was mimicking the Declaration of Independence, the original one, saying, virtual assembly, crisis assembly, and they started off with "in crisis." July 4th, 1776, and we're in crisis. One thing to think about is what happened in Hawaii in terms of voting and politics and whatever, because I've always thought to myself, well, don't corporations get incorporated in states? Don't you have to be a corporation, no matter how big you are, you have to get a charter and be incorporated in a state, and the state has to allow you to do it. So I always wondered, like, how, why we couldn't use that somehow to curb, corporate influence over, our future and deregulating itself. And it almost seemed too simple to me. But I'm like, couldn't we use that as leverage? Well, I saw that Hawaii did pretty much that, and they passed that new law, and that's a really, really good, extraordinary thing. I think it's going to take a while to get out, but that's something to really keep our eyes on, and I think that's incredibly encouraging. And let's not forget, really, that they work for us. They serve at our pleasure. We don't serve at theirs. It's been switched around, but that's the way it was originally set up. And that's what a corporate charter is. And that gives us some degree of leverage. Just as a side note, I'm very encouraged by what happened with Hawaii, and I'm sure you guys all are as well. Okay, so let me just look at these questions really quick. And we're celebrating our independence from the British Empire, who committed genocide on millions and millions of people. Yes, yes, yes. And here's the deal. Here's the crazy thing. We did. We did revolt against that monarchy and that empire, and find our independence and create our independence. Uh, and now, actually, it's funny you brought that up, because if you go down the list of grievances at the end of the Declaration of Independence, and they go on and on and on and on, but so many of them you could just plug in a corporation for now. It's like the way it looks to me is like, we left King George in England, and then we recreated King George here again. And that's where we're at now. And that's why, I mean, it's so similar. If you look at the grievances, if you let it, it's just very, very similar. Insert corporate occupation, just for the blanket term, for King George. And for me, it's exactly the same, except the corporate occupation is far, far, far more dangerous than King George was. Are you looking for a political platform and action group? How does one separate from the corporate oligarchy other than abstaining from giving them any by withdrawing or spending participation? Um, First of all, like, I mean, I am not. This is not political for me. This is survival. This is spiritual for me. This is the realest thing that there is. I understand that it has to do with politics. Me myself, not interested in politics, but I am interested in being uh, a representative of source, a representative of nature, a representative of justice and equality, and to be devoted to sort of bringing that back into our country. Absolutely. And so I'm not sure what I'm doing, to be quite honest. Uh, I am not sure exactly how everything's going to work, but I know by starting that that's a good thing. Um, I would like to I would like to be an inspiration to people to start thinking about like sort of stepping away from being so dependent on other things when you don't need to be, you know. Um, and I think that that's a really, really important thing to remind ourselves that that we are the greatest devices. You are the greatest device. I am the greatest device, and we're definitely at the time of having to keep remember that probably, and I think it's important. So to answer your question, I don't know if that answered it. I'm still figuring it out, but I'm devoted to this. So whatever it takes, whatever it takes. Wait, let me just throw out a fun idea for you. Just this is kind of fun, I think. One thing I thought that would be kind of interesting, right? Instead of like calling like so let's say, and I'm having fun here though, I think it could be true. So I'm kind of taking the corporate tech kind of like profit sort of model and applying it to this. Give them a taste of their own medicine, right? So what if, let's say, I'm just playing around, this is for fun, okay? Let's say you got a state, right? State's got a corporate charter. A corporation wants to do business in that state, right? So they have to get a charter there. The charter, instead of like a one-time charter deal, and this is cool because this means this is less about taxing and more about business itself, as I see it. And by the way, I don't know anything about business or economics either, so please forgive me. I just sort of know what comes into my mind about it. But I thought, which sometimes is good because you kind of don't see some of the barriers sometimes if you don't know what you're doing. Um, but it occurred to me, what if we could do a subscription kind of model with this corporate charter? You know how it used to be you could buy something, you get it, and you own it, and it's done. And now suddenly, well, you own it if you keep paying for it, right? So I thought to myself, and it seems like after what Hawaii did, maybe, what if there was a way to have corporations subscribe to their charter, right? Where every year they have to pay a certain amount, all these things figured out. But that's the foundation of it, right? So wouldn't it be funny to have corporations have to subscribe to be corporations to make us subscribe to things, to get us to subscribe to things? But anyway, I don't know. Hey, like I said, I don't know that much, but I actually think that could work. Here's the last thing I'm going to say. And if you do me a favor, you guys, if you like this, I mean, I've never done this before. Like, I've never done what I'm doing right now before. I've never done any of this before. I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know what I was doing when I did 11 to 45 either, but I did. But I did. And with this, I know what I feel and I know what I know. Or maybe I know what I don't know. But either way, it's real for me. I'll tell you that. And so let me know in the comments, should we do this again? There's so many things I could share with you, and I could it's just, I thought about this a lot, and I have a lot more ideas I want to share. But let me leave you with this one. Now, you can look at this sort of as a metaphorical kind of a idea, symbolic idea of a way to get your mind thinking the right way, or you could look at it as concrete and real. I think that we should actually do it. I think that it makes a lot of sense. But either way, just so you know, this is where my mind is going. And again, to answer Lisa's question, like putting this all into political reality, I don't know, Right now I'm just trying to make it foundational. It's ideas, And then I'm just trying to reach out to people, and I'm sure that we can figure out how to do that, I'm open to so many things. Like I said, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know that I have to do it. That's what I have. That's what I know. And so I had this idea of a way to bring ourselves together, bring this country together, and also sort of create kind of a blueprint for the future that we want to build together. And it's going to sound kind of like radical, all that. And, you know, it can just be a thought experiment, but I think it's worth thinking about it realistically. And, everyone's always talking about in Washington, D.C., draining the swamp, getting rid of all this or whatever. Well, the swamp's pretty big over there, and I don't think it's very drainable. But what we could do is we could move the functioning capital, meaning, Supreme Court, the Senate, Congress, the House, Senate, Congress, Supreme Court, however we work it out. But the functioning heart of our government, the part that like creates our future, the sacred part, to me, the part that's been defiled and imperiled our future. I love the idea of us creating a planned capital city, right? And, you're not going to like get rid of Washington, D.C. You leave Washington, D.C., and, you have a lot of things continuing to go on there, and it's the ceremonial capital and all that. But this is a bold statement, a statement like written in action. It's something that would show everyone who we are and what we are and where we're going in a really beautiful way. My mother was an architectural historian, architect kind of, preservationist, and I grew up in all that. I grew up in an architectural preservation revolution in Dallas, Texas, which probably informed this too. But anyway, so architecture is very important. It's powerful. It shapes our culture. It shapes our future. It shapes the way we think. So I want to leave you with that idea. What if we planned a capital and we built it like in a beautiful, beautiful place? And maybe in some mountains. Maybe it needs to reflect also our understanding of what's going on with the climate and the thing. A lot of places are going to be underwater. I mean, I don't know. Is Washington D.C. going to be flooded? Is it literally going to be a swamp? Maybe. I'm not sure. I have to look at it. But that's another reason to move it. But what if we lifted it off all the lobbyists and all the parasites and and we just put it somewhere beautiful, somewhere in nature, right? Somewhere where it was protected. And we didn't let any of that kind of stuff in. People could go in and all that, but it was somewhere sacred. And we built it together. And in the design of it, it could reflect, Native American elements. It could reflect, colonial elements. I mean, there's a lot of planning that we could do. We could come together, but I definitely think it should be intertwined with nature, and that I think when you look at it, that it should set into nature, that it should be with nature, with the mountains, not imposing over them. That's what we've been doing for a long time. That's the corporate occupation, And so if we really want to transform, that's what I think we should be thinking about. I think it's possible. Why not? I mean, you could probably do it for the cost of a couple of bombers. So anyway, move the capital, move the real capital, keep the ceremonial capital, and design the new capital to reflect our future. This is the most important thing that there is, period.